Welcome, everybody, to Cybersecurity for Transit, What You Need to Know. This webinar is sponsored by National RTAP, National Rural Transit Assistance Program, and N-CATT, National Center for Applied Transit Technology. I'm Kara Marcus, and Andrew Carpenter is with us too, and we'll be introducing the rest of our panel. But first, a little housekeeping. The recording and slides will be posted at nationalrtap.org. And while the webinar is going on, you can enter questions into the Q&A box, and they'll be addressed at the end of the webinar. If you're having trouble with anything on Zoom, please chat with us, and we will do our best to help any technical difficulties. At the end of this webinar, you'll be asked to fill out a very brief post-webinar survey. There'll be a QR code, and tomorrow you'll get a survey link. Stay tuned for additional webinars or workshops on this topic and many other topics from both National RTAP and N-CATT. So if you're new to National RTAP, here's a little bit of background. We were founded in 1987. We're a technical assistance center funded by FTA through its Section 5311, the Rural Transit Program. We provide free training materials and technical assistance to rural and tribal transit providers and to state RTAPs, such as this webinar. We're governed by a review board, which is comprised of 14 state DOT and rural and tribal transit agency staff and managers from across the country. One of our presenters today, Julia Castillo, has served on our review board. You can learn more about National RTAP at nationalrtap.org. What does National RTAP do? An awful lot. Training, including training manuals, books, discs, videos, slides, e-learning for both frontline staff and for management staff. We provide information and best practices via technical briefs, toolkits, topic guides, articles, and news. We have technology tools for procurement, GTFS, cost allocation, website building, and more. Peer networking and training via webinars like this one, conferences. We're going to be doing a conference in December of 2025, peer roundtables and online forums, and one-to-one technical assistance through reference services and tech support. Bring us your questions. So we want questions for this webinar, and we want questions at any time. You can always contact us at info@nationalrtap.org. National RTAP is also part of TACL, which is the Transportation Technical Assistance Coordination Library. N-CATT is also a part of that, as well as FTA and its other TA centers. And you can find TACL at transportation-tackle.org. It's a library all about transportation coordination. And we have a slew of great presenters today. Andrew Carpenter is the director of N-CATT. Andy Souders is the co-founder of Cybrace LLC, which is a leader in cybersecurity. Julia Castillo is executive director for HERTA Public Transit in Iowa, a real transit leader. And Todd Challet is the cyber practice lead for Sunstar Insurance Group, who will be talking all about cyber insurance. So you'll be hearing from all of these presenters throughout this webinar. So now I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, who will talk a little bit about N-CATT and N-CATT cybersecurity resources.
All right, thank you. So hello, everyone. I'm glad you're all here. This is definitely an important topic that RTAP and the N-CATT team have been talking a lot about in the past few months. So we're excited to get to bring this webinar to you, and then other resources that we've put together already and that we are going to keep putting together for the future as well. So some background on N-CATT is we are also a technical assistance center funded by the FTA. And as you might have guessed from the name, we focus on technology, and the goal is to help small agencies so small urban, rural, and tribal transit agencies with understanding the evolving transportation technology landscape that's out there. A lot of the softwares and technology infrastructure have changed a lot in the past few years. And so we are here to help understand what is out there as far as different types of technology resources, and then how to apply those tools to your transit agency in a way that helps you accomplish your goals. And so we don't advocate technology just for technology's sake, but we really focus on the tools that are out there and what you want to be able to do, and then matching those together with you. So we have different resources on our website, and we also provide in-depth technical assistance. So the QR code on the bottom of this slide will bring you to our technical assistance page. So please reach out. Any question is neither too big nor too small. So even if you just have some quick information and referral needs, we are happy to point you in the right direction, or we can settle into some bigger projects with you as well to help you out with different technology needs. So please reach out at any time, and we're happy to help you out. And then after this webinar, if you would like to keep diving into the cybersecurity world, we have a few more resources for you. First, we have a fact sheet on the state of the industry in rural cybersecurity. And then we also have a webinar we recorded a couple years ago about demystifying cybersecurity for small transit agencies. The idea is that even as a small organization, there are still things you can do. And we really want to push the idea that doing anything is better than nothing. So definitely check that out. And then we're also putting together a cybersecurity symposium that we want to bring to state transit association meetings. So that way we can work on a tabletop exercise for making sure people understand what a cyber attack looks like in real time, and figuring out how to respond to that in real time. So that will be coming soon. Definitely reach out if you might be interested in having that at your state association meeting, and we can make that happen even sooner depending on when that is. So yeah, so we look forward to hearing from you, and look forward to what everyone has to say in this webinar.
And now Andy Souders, the CEO and co-founder of Cybrace, and also the Senior Technology Advisor of SFB Consulting, will give a presentation on overview of cybersecurity. Andy.
Thanks, Kara, and thanks to National RTAP for hosting this. I think it's events like these that really help spread the knowledge across transit. So we're super excited to present today. Andy Souders. So I've been doing technology-related stuff for the past 35 years. As you can see there, I've played a number of different roles: CEO, CTO, CIO, and CISO. And so I was, for the purposes of this webinar, I was pretty much the IT guy saying, you know, to the executives, we got it covered, we got it covered, we got it covered. And as we go through this webinar, you'll see that that's not necessarily the case. So thanks again for allowing us to present. Next slide. That's Todd's slide. But that's a little preview of what Todd's going to talk about later on. But yes, definitely use MFA, and Todd will talk about that later on. So next slide, please. All right, so not sure if we have any University of Tennessee, Knoxville fans in the audience, but this is a slide I used at the TPTA conference right after Tennessee beat Alabama. And I think this does a pretty good job of kind of summing up how you might feel protecting your agencies from cyber attacks. As you can see there's a little guy in the blue shirt that says event security, and then he's being completely overwhelmed by, you know, all the loyal volunteers ripping down the goalpost. And so those represent the cyber attackers. So I figured this would be a good way to kind of kick it off. And apologies to any Bama fans out there in the audience, but just like behind this, some mind-blowing statistics. And And this is from an Aon presentation that we did a while back, but you can buy 400 million stolen user IDs and passwords in the black market for 150 bucks. A ransomware kit, $66. So spear phishing, and I think everybody knows what spear phishing is. That would go from $100 to $1,000 per successful account takeover. And now with AI, the schemes are just getting more and more complicated. And so as we look at the next slide, some of your peer agency incidents over the past couple of years. It seems like pretty much monthly, we're reading about some kind of attack in transit. And there are some of the more well-known ones. As we look at some of the additional data over the past 4 years, and we use that 2020 to 2024 kind of benchmark, and I'll get into that here in a second, but during that time, we know of at least 16 agencies that were attacked. 4 of those agencies were repeat victims. Ransomware demands ranged from $170,000 to $7.5 million, to put that into perspective. In addition to the ransomware, the attackers took personally identifiable information, which impacted customers, current and former employees. And then as we recently heard, like with one of the municipalities, City of Columbus, they actually had resident data as part of that attack. One agency lost paratransit services for a day and a half as a result of this. In response to an active threat, another transit agency was forced to take their entire infrastructure offline for almost 2 months. So if you can imagine putting yourself in their shoes, what would you do if you didn't have connectivity to the internet and you didn't have email, didn't have phones? How would you survive during that period? But that's what they did. In the end, they did not get a ransomware notice. They were not breached. And again, these are the ones we know about. There are likely many more. According to IBM, the average cost of a data breach globally in 2024 was $4.88 million. So this is obviously a big issue, which again is why I'm glad that National RTAP has teed this conversation up. Next slide. So this is what I was mentioning before. In 2020, my colleague Scott Belcher was author on a study with the Mineta Transportation Institute to assess cybersecurity readiness in the transit agency. Some of you may have participated in this study. As you can see, the results were fairly bleak. We're currently updating the study 4 years later, and you can see some of the initial draft data, and I want to stress this is very initial, it's very draft, we've not come conclusive yet. But so a couple of these really stand out. If you look, 52% of transit agencies do not have cybersecurity clauses in their vendor contracts. And I think that's especially interesting considering the dependency that transit has on third-party vendors. And only 41% conduct at least annual security audits. And so that number alone is surprising. As we dig a little bit deeper and trying to understand what they meant by a cybersecurity audit, some consider endpoint protection tools like WebRoot or antivirus software as an audit. Others consider vulnerability scanning as an audit, primarily technology-based solutions, and that's where I would come in as the IT guy and say, you're okay, we got it covered. We're doing vulnerability testing or scanning. We're doing an occasional pen test, but yeah, so as you can see, the numbers there have gotten some better in some cases, but the big one there too is that 76% do not believe they have the resources to respond to a cyber attack. And that's in transit, and we see that in more broadly as well. So stay tuned more on the MTI report in Q4 in early 2025. Next slide, please. So it's not just transit. I'm not just here to pick on you. This is a study that was done by MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Sloan School of Management. They released a study. My computer's getting ready to restart, so I could prevent that. Hold on. They released a study this summer where they interviewed 37 CEOs of very large companies, and these companies are average annual revenue of about $12 billion, so they're massive, spending millions and millions of dollars on cybersecurity. 7 of these CEOs had actually been hacked. So this quote from the report, we like this because it really helps present a platform in this whole changing view from what people refer to as cybersecurity versus cyber resilience. And again, this is something we want to continue to evangelize. And just putting this very simply, cybersecurity, and I'll get into this in the next couple of slides, cybersecurity is about trying to prevent an attack. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to stop a cyber attack. You can do your best to limit the damage, which is what a lot of the tools are out there to do. But if a hacker really wants to get in, they're going to get through. We saw that with, we continue to see that with very large organizations, and we see that in transit as well. But for this specific one, again, these are multi-billion-dollar companies spending millions of dollars per year on cybersecurity. Next slide, Kara. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but as Kara said, the presentation is going to be available for download later. We just wanted to provide a simple chart to help frame the difference so that you can understand the difference between cybersecurity and cyber resilience. Again, as the IT guy for so long, I was in charge of trying to prevent and detect attacks on our infrastructure, but it's primarily just the technical defenses, not the entire organization. Whereas cyber resilience is focused on the entire organization. So the executives, the IT team, and it's focused on how to adapt, recover, and continue after an attack. Again, agency-wide. So while we're primarily focused on cyber risk today, the ability to continue your operations could also be impacted by an unexpected loss of your data center due to a natural disaster. And we've seen that over the past week with Hurricane Helene, which has been devastating. And of course, we wish all of those impacted a fast recovery. But that was just, it was just devastating. Next slide. Okay, so where do we start and how do I pay for it? So there are a number of resources. I think Andrew mentioned some of those. And again, that's a great resource for you to use as far as where can we go for funding at the state level, the TSA level. CISA has funding as well. And then, Julia is going to talk a little bit more about that. She's actually at a conference right now where this is coming up. There's this big push for additional funding, recognizing the fact that a lot of small rural agencies just do not have the available funding to be able to do a lot of these things. That said, there are some free resources when it comes to cyber resilience assessments. The Cybersecurity Assessment Tool for Transit, or CATT tool, was released by TSA back in February of 2023. And the CATT tool is NIST-based. It's a self-assessment. It provides an interactive PDF where we'll walk you through, I think it's 84 questions across 10 different domains. And you'll get a scorecard as to how you score from a maturity perspective across all 10 of those domains. Our tool, the Cyber-Based Resilience Review, is more detailed, but it's very easy to understand. We have some links in there to help you provide additional detail around the assessment questions. And we really tried to make it, and I don't know if the people out there will remember TurboTax when it came out, but TurboTax, when it came out, it really helped people understand taxes a lot better because I had those call outs, I had those additional details that I needed to provide. And then it stores your information after every assessment that you take. At the end of the day, you would get a scorecard, like you see there with the CRR performance summary. And then if you wanted to take another assessment in 3 months or 6 months or a year, then you're not starting from scratch. You can start from where you left off. We're also working on a new product where we'll be able to do assessments in groups versus individually. So while your responses will be private, so this could be, think of 10 or 15 transit agencies all going through a facilitated walkthrough. Your individual responses are kept private, but as a group, you're able to share ideas, you're able to share questions with the group so that you get that collaborative approach. And again, it's a great idea, a great opportunity to share ideas and questions with your peers. Next slide, please. Okay, so boiling this down, what should you be doing as a transit agency? Number one is to commission a cyber audit or a cyber resilience assessment. Involve key stakeholders from your entire organization. We believe that a facilitated workshop is definitely the best. Putting this kind of in context, and Andrew kicked this off by, saying doing something is better than nothing. Ignorance is not bliss. In another presentation, we talked about the whole idea of doing a cyber assessment. I don't want to know what my score is. I don't want to know where I end up. And so it's the same thing as like not going in for your annual physical. I mean, just because you don't go in doesn't mean you might not have, some kind of health problem. So, that said, that's going for your annual physical as well. Another thing, do not have blind trust in your IT department. And coming from an IT person, I can say that, but make it informed trust. So again, this should be a collaborative approach. Don't just punt this and say my IT organization has it. We hear that time and time again. And again, when you're really looking at this, you're looking at it holistically as part of the entire organization. If you do have an attack, a cyber attack, the entire organization is going to be involved. We also cannot stress enough the importance of having living, breathing, business continuity plans, disaster recovery plans, incident response plans, and not only in case of a cyber attack, which you may or may not think is going to happen to you, but in case of a natural disaster. That way you'll understand how to bring your critical systems back online, or to be able to handle if there's going to be some kind of extended outage. I think I covered the majority of what I wanted to cover on that slide. Next slide, please. So finally, here's a quote done by University of Oxford, about the CEO sharing his experience after he was hacked, had a cyber attack. And so with that, I thought it'd be a great way to introduce Julia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Castillo. I'm the Executive Director of HRTA, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, for the small agencies, are you ready? So next slide. And just so that you know that I am from a smaller system, I know there's many that are smaller than I and some that are a lot bigger, but we are a 7-county region. We cover over 4,000 square miles in our service area. It shows what kind of transportation we have, and that we have 12 office staff and about 48 drivers at this point. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start by why should small agencies be concerned? And the biggest thing is hackers don't care who you are. They are just looking for a way in. They don't necessarily go, oh, well, that one's too small, I'm not going to do that. They want to cause havoc, and those that do ransomwares just want to see if they can get money. But also understand that there's various ways that they can get in too. So they can get in through your server, they can go through your phone system. There's a place out here in California where they got in through their AHVC air conditioning because of how that was all combined together. And so you have many ways. They're smarter. That's what they do. They spend all their days just trying to figure out how they can get in. Smaller agencies can also be more attractive because an attacker can really endanger the whole survival of an agency through a single attack. And ransomware is the largest threat today for smaller agencies. And if you don't know what ransomware is, that is where they will come in and they will actually take your data and lock you out of having access to any of it, and saying you will only get it back if you pay us a certain amount of money. And in smaller agencies, that could be anywhere from $5 million to $2 million. I don't know how many of you that are in smaller agencies just have that kind of money sitting around where you could be like, oh, no problem, I'll just pay for that and let's just move on with our day. Most don't, and some don't pay. And then they have to start from scratch and rebuild everything. And if you can imagine having to do that, which I want you to do because I want you to understand how serious this is. smaller systems are getting attacked as well. And we need to understand what that looks like and what that would mean for not only the people that we serve every day, but what about for your staff as well? Yesterday I was in a session, I'm at a conference, and yesterday I was at a session, and there was a smaller agency that was talking about how they did get hacked, and the first thing that they wanted to do was to make sure that their people got paid that week, but they didn't have any of the data because they were locked out of it all. And the last thing you also want that you have to take into consideration is what is the ransom. If you don't pay the ransom, what is going to be done with that data? Most likely it's going to be sold on the dark web. And then you've put all of your employees in a position where all of their data has been out there for somebody else to use and for them to get somehow conned personally. So we have to take this very, very seriously. And disgruntled employees, even though they are not considered, like it's not a virus or malware, but they can play pretty much havoc with that as well. So if you have a disgruntled employee who's leaving, they can alter your files, they can alter applications, they can change customer information. If they're in the finance department and they have access to all your financial records, there's things they can do. And if you don't have something in place that says, this is how we mitigate that risk, then it's not necessarily a matter of if, it's just a matter of when is something going to happen. So next slide. Phishing scams are the most common ways that hackers use to steal information. And, phishing can occur through email or SMS, with mainly text messaging. They send an email that looks legitimate, but really what it's designed to do is to trick you into entering information or going to a site where somebody can steal information. A very common one that I'm sure most of you have gotten at some point in your life at work is that will say so-and-so wants to change their banking information before the next paycheck because they've moved or whatever. And those are oftentimes taken seriously, and so they go in and they change the information in their system, and come payday, the employee doesn't get the paycheck, but somebody does. And those are really hard to track down, and the banks are not really willing to help recover on a lot of those. So do you have something in place before an employee can change their personal information, like banking or emails or whatever, that says that this is legitimate and this is what you're doing? Because oftentimes those emails come from somebody that the email is exactly the same as the employee that is requesting this change, and the employee knows nothing about. And that's just one example of something that comes about. And then other ones are, they can send an email that has a fake website, and then you go to the website and then they ask you for some personal information. Maybe it's your email and your login information. And once they have that, they have access to all of your data. And then there's pop-up phishing, where you will get a pop-up that says you will be locked out of, DocuSign unless you do this. And then you go somewhere and it wants you to download something to fix the problem, which you could be downloading a malware, or if you call a support number and you don't know who you're talking to and you give them access to your computer, you've just allowed somebody to come in and do that. So you have to understand what phishing looks like. You have to understand what malware is and ransomware. Viruses are a form of malware. And I'm not asking everybody to be IT experts. I am certainly not. But I've educated myself enough to know how to talk to an IT person. And sometimes I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on here, but this is what the end result is, and I need your help. So at least educate yourself a bit to know what you need to look out for. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, what I've presented here. There are, tons of different ways that people can get information out of you that you think will be legit, and it won't be. So just do some research and educate yourself a bit on those topics. Next slide. So our journey has been that took place about 3 years ago, I believe, maybe 4. I don't know. I've lost track of time at some point, but leadership made the decision to make cybersecurity a priority for us. And so we went ahead and we performed an initial assessment. We did that with Cyberbase. They were beta testing their product at the time, and we became beta testers for them. And so we did that. And then as that grew, we did an actual assessment through there. Our insurance company called us. They said, in order for us to continue with our cybersecurity, they would have to do an assessment of us to make sure that we were mitigating our risks as best as possible. So we've had those 2 times of assessments done. And we use the assessments as tools to figure out where we could mitigate the most risk for the least amount of cost. We're a small system. We don't have, $50,000 to put into all of these tools that could manage things. So I'm going to give you some really easy things that you can do that will help mitigate the risk. And I'm going to just repeat, it's no longer an option to do nothing. You have to at least do something. And if you're going to do anything, mandatory password changes. Make sure that your employees are changing those passwords every 3 months, if not more often. It's frustrating. Nobody likes it. We all get the, oh my gosh, I have to do that. But if you are using the same password that you've used for 20 years or whatever, and you're using that same password on everything that you log into, you have opened yourself up for it to be very easy to hack into your computer and access all of your data. So we talked with our IT people, and we have it mandatory. They have to change their password every 3 months. And if they don't change their password, they get locked out of all of the data to access on their computer until they change their password. I would like to say that we can trust everybody to just do it on their own, but we want to make sure that they're doing what is our policy. Make them change their passwords. The second thing I would say is multi-factor authentication. You saw that in the vehicle that was very first shown, but Todd will talk more about that too. But that is where you log in and then you either get an email sent that you have to verify that you've received that, or you get a text message sent that you have to verify that you've received that, so that you are really saying that you are who you are. Again, something super easy to do, frustrating nonetheless, much like changing passwords. You have a second step you have to do to get where you want to go, but it's so very important. And those are 2 things that changing your password costs you nothing. It might cost you for the IT to set the notifications up, but it's very, very low cost of anything. And then the third thing is there is a product called Know Before. We don't get any commission or anything out of them, but it's who we use, and they've been great, and they are super, super affordable. But what it is, it's an integrated platform for security awareness training, and it's combined with simulated phishing attacks. So at any point in time, on any given day, we get random phishing attacks that are phishing emails that are sent to us, everybody in the company, and they may all be different, but you get an email and you don't know if it's actually from Know Before or if it's just a random one that you've gotten. And so what it has taught us and all of our staff is we have to look at those emails a little bit more closely before we just make a split decision that we're either going to delete it or we're going to move forward with what they're asking us to do. And if it is a Know Before simulated attack, you can either there'll be a button on your computer. You can push it and say, I know this is, I'm going to report this because I know this isn't a good email. Or you can just ignore it, or you can delete it. But all of those have something that they will send to us and let us know. If we get it, if we catch it, they tell us, congratulations, you've caught this phishing attack. If you don't necessarily know it, but it does go on a report where we know. that you have clicked onto something that you shouldn't have clicked onto because it was a phishing attack, and it could have been something that would have taken you somewhere where you shouldn't have gone. And we get reports about those once a month, and we know which employees are paying really close attention because they're catching more of them and which ones aren't. But because you don't know if it's actually a know before phishing attack or if it's just a random one that comes through like they do, you have a tendency to look at all emails a little bit more closely because as competitive people, which most people are, we want to know that our boss knows that we're catching those emails. So that is another, I would encourage people to, it doesn't have to be know before, but get some type of phishing simulated, a company that does simulate phishing attacks, just to help your employees understand. They also do training, and the training are like 10 questions after the training, and they're super simple, but it reminds you of what you should be looking for, gives super great tips like, always look at the email address of who it's being sent from. Do you know the person it's being sent from? Do you know the company it's being sent from? Is it a Gmail account but asking for business information? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can find out just by looking at the email. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes it looks like it's perfectly legitimate, and then you have to go to your next step and look at other different things. Find a company and do the simulated phishing attacks. And then second is you have to look at what is your plan. Do you have a plan for cyber attacks? Do you have a disaster response plan for anything? We prepare for floods, we prepare for tornadoes, we prepare for anything that would make our building like go offline. We have that, but what we didn't have in ours was cyber attacks. What if we get hit by a cyber attack? What is our response? And we don't have that anywhere. We're working on it now to create those plans, but that's something I would also say you really need to have. What do you do? I would say the first thing, is make sure that you are not using your computers. If you know that there's something wrong, if you can't get logged into them, I think Todd mentioned, we'll mention this too, unplug, just unplug everything. Don't try to fix it yourself. Don't try to do anything but unplug and get your IT people called immediately and say, I think we've been hacked, and take their leadership on it. But what does your cyber attack response plan? You need one so that everybody knows what to do in that case. Then also there is, and Todd's going to talk about this in just a minute, but contact your insurance agency. First of all, make sure you have cybersecurity, and if you don't, can you get it, and is it cost efficient for you? I would recommend it just like anything else to have, but there are some cost savings going on, and some of that is going to depend on what you're doing. What is your risk factor? Because insurance companies, much like they do vehicles, if you are a higher risk because you live in a higher area of car accidents or something, the cost goes up. But what is your risk for that? Because it could be something very affordable, and I would say you need it. And then once you do an initial assessment, absolutely do future year assessments. We are in the process of ready to do our next assessment to see how much better off we were than we were 3 years ago. So those are the things I have to say about that. Lastly, what I want to say is next week, myself, Jeff Nelson, who is with MetroLink, and Scott Belcher, who is with Cyberbase, we are all going to AASHTO, and we are going to be having a panel discussion with the DOTs, who have all the DOTs, state DOTs that are there, about how can they better help smaller agencies. A lot of times we get mandated to do things, but we get no extra funding to do them. And this isn't something that we think that we'll get extra funding for unless we make sure that the state DOTs understand how important this is, and that all of us are just one attack away from, having it be a major disaster for us. And and our systems. So we are going to do that, see if we can get state DOTs to help fund these issues with cybersecurity mitigation with all of the small agencies. And if not, if there are other things that they suggest that we can do. But we are out there advocating on behalf of all of the small agencies. So I think that's mine. I think I'm done, and it's turning it over to Todd.
Thank you, Julia. My name is Todd Chalet. I'm the cyber insurance lead for Sunstar Insurance Group. And today I'm going to talk about cyber insurance and these bullet points on the screen here. How cyber insurance can manage your cyber risk, what's required or recommended these days from cyber underwriters, how to determine a limit or how much coverage you should carry, how much cyber insurance is costs these days, and some other benefits of a cyber insurance policy. Next slide. So I hope after listening to Julia and Andy and the fact that everybody's here, we're all all in agreement that cyber threats are very real and a very big risk to transit agencies and really any operating business in the US. You can go back. These are a few claim scenarios that I listed here, and these are probably the most common ones we're seeing today. And the value of a cyber insurance policy as a way to manage your risk is the fact that a robust cyber insurance policy can respond to a cyber breach to provide the resources and the experts and the items that you'll need to respond. So if you read each of these, the last sentence, I'll read some of them, but lost revenue, customer refunds, costs to restore systems, pay for legal counsel, notifying customers. These are all potentially an impact to your agency in the event of a cyber breach. And a robust cyber insurance policy can provide the resources and the experts to be able to do that for you and help you weather the storm of a cyber breach. I will say that not all cyber insurance policies are alike, and so it's important if you have one to ensure that it's going to respond as you anticipate. A lot of cyber insurance can be disguised or sublimited in another policy. So if your cyber insurance coverage is coming from a package policy where you're paying for your general liability, your auto, if it's part of that, it's worth reviewing that to ensure that it's going to respond as you anticipate. I looked at one recently for a transit agency, and I think the price may be the first indicator, but they're paying $400 for cyber insurance coverage. They think they're covered, and in fact, there's no extortion coverage, so that wouldn't help in a ransomware attack. And there's a lot of other insufficiencies that if they were attacked, it's just not going to respond as they hoped. Next slide. Julia mentioned some top things to do to improve your cyber hygiene, and this is, all four of those things are listed on here, but these are best practices and items that are asked for on almost every cyber insurance application at this point. Multi-factor authentication is almost required across the board with every cyber insurance company that you're going to that we would quote with. And I think there's a handful that don't require it, but it's really is the number one thing that became over the course of the last few years required to implement. I would note that a lot of things on here, payment authentication policies and procedures, the cyber secure culture, the disaster recovery plan, incident response plan, all of these things are internal policies and procedures, and that can be worked on, implemented without the major technological outlay of cash that some people believe they're going to have to do in order to improve and become insurable. So a lot of these things can be done with the resources that Andy talked about, with the resources Julia talked about. Cyber insurance brokers can help if you have questions with some of these things as well. So it doesn't have to be purely a technological improvement of your systems in order to get up to speed with what underwriters are asking for. And the last thing I'll say, that cyber insurance of the last couple months or the last 2 years has the market is softened, meaning that prices have come down, competition has gone up amongst insurers. And so I would urge you, if you don't have cyber insurance and you're interested, to engage with a broker that can go out and quote for you. The availability of cyber insurance today is much more ready than it was only a few years ago, and not all of these things are required. You don't have to be 100% compliant with everything on here. There's availability of cyber insurance without everything on here. And then I'll touch on kind of what Julia had mentioned, is if you are doing assessments and if you're constantly improving your cyber hygiene, which I hope everybody will be doing, it's important to continue to stay engaged with your broker if they're not already proactively doing it with you, to ensure that they're up to speed with your cyber controls in place and you are getting best available pricing on a year-to-year basis. Next slide. This slide addresses how much coverage an agency should carry, and this is just an example of an agency with about a $20 million budget. And when we consider how much limit to carry when we're working with an agency, it's a multifactorial process that we can use. Incident modeling, which is what you see there in the blue. This is a basic incident modeling application that we can use. We also use peer benchmarking, which is what you see with the bars in the red. There's I believe, a lot of limitations with peer benchmarking because everybody doesn't buy cyber insurance limits for the same reason. So I think that, although important, I think it's just to remember that it's just a piece in the decision-making process. And then we'll consider what's you're required to carry. So if you have a contractual requirement to carry 2 or 3 million, of course, that's an important part of the equation. And then lastly is affordability. Here the modeling is showing that it would be recommended, in my opinion, to carry 2 million. But if your agency can only carry 1 million, that's still 1 million in coverage, which is better than 0 in coverage, in my opinion. So we work with our clients on coming up with what's the best limit given your agency specific scenario, and come up with something that works for everybody. Next slide. When we consider I wanted to give an idea of pricing for cyber insurance. There's been a ton of volatility over the past 5 years. If you bought cyber insurance during 2021 or 2022, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me you got an increase of 100% or 200%, which sounds crazy when I think back to then, that you get a year-over-year change of that much, but that's what we were seeing. This is just average year-over-year renewal pricing, and you can see in Q4 of 21, the average renewal, according to this data, was 35%, which is just a huge number. And fortunately, though, in the past year, pricing is moderated. We're getting renewals back now of flat pricing, meaning no change year over year, even some decreases. Basically, if pricing's up more than a few percent, we're looking for alternative options, which is, a very favorable thing. Next slide. This is a continuation of that snapshot of the $20 million budgeted sample transit agency that I showed 2 slides ago, where the recommendation was to carry about 2 million in coverage. And you can see here they're carrying that amount, and also with a smaller picture of that volatility that the previous slide showed, of going from $4,000 in annual premium in 2018 to, in 2021, that's a 500% increase, if not more, over those few years. And then, the next year in 22, pricing came down, but that's for half as much coverage. And then you'll see the softening or the decrease in pricing there in 23, 24. And I wouldn't be surprised if the 24, 25 pricing was probably right around the $8,800 as well. So, pricing is improving for sure. If you haven't engaged with a broker to quote and look at alternatives to what you've been carrying in the last few years, I'd encourage you to do that. If you're working with a broker that hasn't presented options in the last couple of years, it's worthwhile to ask them to go out and quote other options for you, because there is savings available. Next slide. Finally, these are some other resources available to an cyber insurance policyholder that across the board in any industry that carries a cyber policy, I believe these are so underutilized. These are resources available to a policyholder, and this is just with one policy here and one insurance carrier that you see complimentary options, discounted offers, and then in the lower left-hand corner is language. It just basically offers a $3,000 reimbursement on expenses that go towards cyber hygiene improvement. So this is just to say that if you do carry cyber insurance right now, check with your policy, check with your broker, check with your insurance company on what resources are available, and then collaborate with whoever you're working with on your IT to see if there's any opportunity to for some cost savings or to bolster cyber hygiene for it may be a discounted rate than what you had initially thought it would be.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you to all of our panelists. Boy, we really learned a lot in this webinar, and really a lot to think about and a lot to do. So now going to invite all our panelists back to the stage for your questions. You can ask your questions in the Q&A portion, or even in the chat if it's easier, or by raising your hand. I think I saw somebody's hand raised in the middle of the session. Or you can just begin talking. So we are ready for your questions. Who'd like to start?
A lot of times, I'll start with just a question I get a lot of times, which is, what do we do if we've been breached before and we're trying to get cyber insurance? I'd say this was a bigger issue a few years back, but at this point, I think cyber insurers are pretty well aware that almost everybody has had an issue, or if they, and so I would urge you that if you have had a breach, you take notes of what happened. What have you done to improve your hygiene after the breach? Did you follow the advice of whoever the experts were that you engaged? And being able to tell the story to an underwriter of what happened and what you did to prevent it from happening again is the most important thing. It doesn't mean that you're prevented from getting cyber insurance.
Any of the other panelists want to add anything to that?
Andy, were you going to say something? I was just going to say, make sure that when you are doing your assessment, or when you are looking at what your risks are, that you are taking into consideration everything. We've had times when cities have done that and all of their systems don't talk to each other, or they have software on the maintenance side, and then you've got all of the transit side, or maybe you've got another, and they're just looking at one piece of it and saying, this is what I need for transit just to do this, but they're forgetting that all of these other places can get them over there as well. So just make sure that you're doing all of it, that everything is either assessed on all of the servers that they have, or that they're all being looked at for the one particular piece.
Great. And we got a question in the Q&A. If we contract with a provider for a microtransit system, do we need additional cybersecurity insurance if the city already has the coverage?
Most likely, every situation's different, and how, this is structured. I think I would need to see the details exactly, but the most likely answer is yes, you would need cyber insurance coverage specific to your agency rather than rely on another party for coverage.
Okay, great. And Terrence has a question. I'm going to ask you to unmute so you can ask your question live. Terrence, are you able to ask your question? Okay, I think you're ready to talk. I see your microphone's on.
Yeah, my apologies. I'm having trouble with my technology. No, I wish I had been better prepared. I don't have a question at this point. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, glad your technology came back on. So, yeah, I had maybe a little trouble getting you to unmute, so we're even. Yeah, other things, you all mentioned some great things you can do right now to improve your cyber hygiene, your cyber risk, etc. What do you think, if you have never really thought about this before, would be the very, very first thing you can do to really educate yourself and educate all of your employees in a transit agency? If this is the first time anybody's really thought about cybersecurity, where's a good place to start? Which of our panelists wants to answer that?
I think the whole concept of going through the assessment, whether it's CAT or whatever, together, and if you have an outside facilitator, that's excellent. But we've seen where the assessments are done kind of internally, and people don't end up liking the score that they ended up with. But I think that whole process of going through that questionnaire, it really helps create basically a dialogue around cybersecurity to understand, what you have, what you don't have, and I think that is that's one area where I think that we've seen those facilitated workshops have really helped kind of, back to Andrew's point when he started out. I just loved when he said, doing something is better than doing nothing. There are a bunch of, free resources and things out there as well. But I think just for individual agencies, going through some kind of assessment is, as an organization, is a huge first step.
Great. And National RTAP and N-CATT can get you a whole list of different assessments you can use in addition to the ones that were introduced.
Yep.
Not today's webinar. Okay, we do have another question in the Q&A. Julia, did you want to add anything first?
I was just going to say, from somebody who came through and did an assessment, and I'm not an IT person, but it was good for me to, as a leader, to know what was actually happening on the ground, and learning about that. I think you always have to have your leadership behind you and backing you on this. But what Andy said about the scoring of it, you also have to be honest with yourself. If you have somebody in a leadership position and you're going to do an assessment and they're going to be like, oh, I don't want them to know that we're, not doing that, or that we're weak in that area, it's not going to be beneficial to you at all. So you have to be extremely honest with yourselves. It's not a bad thing. It's literally, that's how you're going to know where to mitigate. And I know it's just hard sometimes for people to be completely honest in those assessments to say, I just don't want them to know, the higher ups to know that we fail in this. But it's really nothing to be ashamed of, right, Andy?
You're right. That's where I probably overused the TurboTax example because, if you make it really simple and you lie on your taxes, the IRS is going to find you. If you lie on the assessment, then you're going to get hacked. So yeah, it's a pretty easy analogy.
Yeah, that's good advice. Now, the next question we have is, does using a cloud to store data considered better for cyber resilience? And who wants to tackle that? A cloud versus, say, your own computer server network.
So I can start. So from the cloud perspective, a lot of what you're looking at when it comes to the physical access controls. So that means people having to have dual authentication to badge in and out of the actual physical facility. Also having things like environmental safety processes in place and things like that. If the facility were to catch on fire, those definitely help. So you can kind of offload that. So if I'm with Amazon, if I'm Google, then a lot of those physical access controls certainly help. But it comes to the, are you still focusing on the IT-based information technology side of it? So are you limiting access to those servers by, right of least privilege? A lot of the policies that we would need to see in place. Are you enforcing multi-factor authentication to get access to those servers? So certain pieces of it, if I don't have it on-prem, then I'm covered, or I'm in a better position from the physical perspective. But other things, that Julia and Todd both mentioned about multi-factor authentication, how are you controlling access and authorization to those systems? Those would still apply regardless if you're on-prem or cloud.
One of the things with the cloud is who is managing the cloud and what are their cyber policies and their cyber hygiene. Most likely a transit agency isn't going to build their own cloud. They're going to contract it out. So you have to see what the cloud manager is doing. Do they have regular backups, maybe backup multiple backups and things like that. And when you contract with a vendor, if it's going to be for cloud, you should know that ahead of time.
That's a great point. So backups are still largely up to you as to what you want to do. Do you just want to back up locally? Do you want to back up offsite? You're going to do a hot backup from a location perspective. So you have, if Mid-Atlantic goes down, that I have a backup facility in Washington State, then that's definitely something that you would still need to, on your own, figure out how you're going to back up your data. The other point around AWS, most of I think all of the major cloud providers, you can get certifications from them. They're going to be SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, which means and part of that applies to their own compliance, but then your data is on their server. So how are you going to comply with those specific requirements? So it's not like just moving your data to the cloud is not going to, it'll help again from the physical perspective, but there are still things you're going to need to address.
Okay. I don't see any more questions, but we did give more than an hour for this webinar. So last chance if anybody has any additional questions. And again, even if you don't now, you're welcome to send them in at any time after. Here we go. So we're going to wrap up. And before I talk about our upcoming events, of which there are many, I want to let you know that to continue with cybersecurity, I know N-CATT says they have some more stuff coming up. but we are working on a cybersecurity cheat sheet, which will be considered one of our technical briefs, and it'll have a lot of what we talked about today, plus much more. And that'll be sort of a checklist of simple things transit agencies can do. We'll have that posted on our website within a month. We're also having a lot of events, even one tomorrow. If you're using GTFS or GTFS Builder, please come to our 3-part workshop series. We're also having a 2-part webinar about intercity transportation, one in October and one in January. You can register for the October one now, talking about intercity transportation hubs and connection points. Mobility wallets we're doing again in conjunction with N-CATT. And mobility wallets are a really neat thing that has come up in the past couple of years. Some of you might have them to be able to offer your riders a very easy way to get their tickets just on their device. The marketing toolkit for National RTAP was updated recently, and we're having a webinar to introduce it. It's maybe, I don't know, 1,000,000% bigger than what it was before, so you'll love it when you see it. That's in November. And then we even have some stuff we're planning for 2025. Succession planning, LinkedIn Learn Along with some of our review board members to talk about succession planning in transit agencies and state DOTs. And our book discussion group, we have 2 meetings a year. You can read The Lost Ticket and talk about it. And this isn't a webinar, but I think I did mention in the beginning, and we're very excited about it. Our next Technical Assistance Conference will be on December 7th through 12th, 2025 in wonderful Austin, Texas. So right now, just save the date. We'll have more information on our website soon. So that's all. Thank you for joining us from all of our panelists and our hosts. This is the webinar survey QR code. Please scan it if you want to answer right now. And you'll get an email tomorrow with the recording, with the slides, and with another chance to answer our survey. If you want to email us or call us, we'll get you in touch with any of today's panelists if you have any specific questions for them. And please contact us if you have any questions about anything. Thank you so much. Anybody want to add anything? Any of the panelists? Or... Okay.
Thank you for letting us talk about it.
Great. I see all the clappings coming. So we'll make it a wrap. Have a great day, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you.